everyone, my name is Shelly Moore. Welcome to 5 More Minutes Special Home Learning Edition. Today we are talking about explaining COVID. Hello my friends, welcome back to our little mini series. We are meeting twice a week to talk about learning tips for tips for learning at home. Tips for home learning? That's what we're doing. Just to kind of stay connected, help our kids with disabilities in our families who are supporting them in ways that, remember last episode we talked about in ways that support engagement and connection. So today what we're talking about is how we can support engagement and connection through education, and to really support kids knowing why and what is happening in the world right now. My heart has gone out to a lot of the families who have kids with disabilities, because I can't even imagine like going to school, being with my friends, being with my teachers, my support workers, all I'm gonna do this every day, and then all of a sudden no more school, and trying to figure that out, and especially if it hasn't been explained what's happening, and if all kids are hearing kind of what's in the media or the news, it might sound really scary. So today what we're going to talk about is kind of the power of why, and how helping kids to understand what is happening in ways that are appropriate can actually really increase kids' engagement and decrease anxiety around what's kind of happening in the world. So I got a few resources for you. Just kind of like the basics is, regardless of pandemics, a really important strategy to help kids engage is that they know why something is happening or why we're doing what we're doing. It is a universal design for learning principle. Not principle, like, what are they called? Sub-principle? Indicator? All of the things, and so there's so much support. Like, kids know why, they're going to be engaged, and so what we're going to kind of pull from that today is if we can somehow explain to kids why life looks so different right now, it's going to decrease that anxiety and probably decrease a lot of maybe some of the challenging behavior that we're experiencing in the families and in the homes, because I can't imagine not understanding what was going on. So we're going to focus on how we can do that with different ability levels and different ages. So I've got a couple of resources here for you. There's going to be some kind of big things that we want to try and target. So the first thing we want to talk about is how we can communicate what's happening in the world in a really clear way with really plain language. Even if the kids in our home aren't necessarily decoding, or maybe they're not communicating verbally or speaking, it doesn't mean that they can't understand what we're saying to them, right? So we're really going to presume competence today, especially for our kids who we may not know if they understand. We may never know if they understand, but that's not really up for us to decide. It's our job to make sure they have the opportunity to understand. And so I'm going to show you some resources today that are going to assume competence, and we are going to provide some opportunities to clearly communicate in really simple and plain language, with a lot of visuals, what's happening, so that everybody can kind of understand some kind of what's going on. So clear explanation, understanding that kids can understand at a higher comprehension than they can sometimes communicate. And so if a kid's not decoding, then we're going to read it to them, right? It doesn't mean that they can't understand that. We're going to make sure that the information we're communicating is really reassuring safety and not fear-based. I know that's probably one of the hardest things about media, is that it's very, very fear-evoking. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that to our kids. And so this is very much clear. This is something that we all have to deal with. The whole world is dealing with it, something really clear. We can stay safe. We're going to have tips for, what our families can do about this. But really going to eliminate the fear factor, because it's just unnecessary. The other part that I learned really early in my teaching career that I found was a really useful strategy was, whenever we want to educate kids about something in their life, to have the actual resources we're using reflect who they are. So for example, if I'm working with a student who has a disability, who's a teenager, I want to make sure that the resources that I'm using have teenagers representing. So like, I don't want to have a 17-year-old, for example, looking at a resource that has kids who are 4 and 5 in it, right? And so the other part of the resource resources that I want to show you are resources that range in age, range in grade, and also represent a diverse cultural representation, because that's the other thing. I don't want to just learn from white people, right? And so making sure that we're representing multiple cultures, multiple ages, and multiple ability levels, right? And so I think I found a pretty good array, and so your family can then look at them and be like, what's going to work best for my kids? And even something as simple as like, does this look like my family, can be a question that you're absolutely allowed to ask, and just multiple languages and things like that. So clear, plain language, visual based, not fear based, and just include resources that represent who we want to be communicating to. These are things that you can, they're all text based, so they can be things that you can rewatch or reread. That's not going to harm anyone. So honestly, if kids are having anxiety, it's not going to hurt to revisit some of these resources. So I've picked out 4 big ones today that I'm going to show you. They all have kind of different strengths and features. By all means, this is not an exhaustive list. Like, honestly, if you Google COVID resources for people with disabilities, you're gonna find a large array. And if you kind of stick with those guiding principles: clear, visual based, reassuring safety, avoiding fear, and representing us, you're gonna find some good stuff. So I'm gonna show you a few ones. So the first one we're gonna look at is from the Autism Educator. So her name is Amanda McGinnis, and she has a website, and it is called Little Puddins. And I'll have all of these links for you at the end of the episode and in our post on social media. But basically, she has a really nice social story that's written, and if you know social stories, it basically walks through a scenario, like a book kind of. So if you kind of even just see it, it's very visual based. It represents multiple diversity of people. I would say the age range for this would probably be like school aged, because if you look, it talks about how many days school will be out for, so you can put that in for your family, because I think it's also really important to explain to kids when they can go back to school. Or if you're not sure, just tell them that we're not sure when we're going to go back, but we will go back one day. So yeah, having coronavirus in the situation as a story, school-aged. It does have read aloud and independent components. If you look at this page, for example, having one sentence, it's pretty accessible, but then there's other pages that are full paragraphs and other pages that are just pictures. So depending on the ability level of the kids that you're working with, you can kind of decide what ways for them to interact, and then just you read aloud the parts that aren't accessible for them. Very often kids can still understand that even if they can't decode it themselves. Okay, so that is one resource, and I like that. And there's actually a ton of resources on Amanda's website, so go take a look at that. The second one that I want to show you this is my favorite one actually. It is from Green Mountain Self-Advocates, and all of these resources are made for people with disabilities by people with disabilities. It's an incredible resource. This is a great resource for people who are probably 16 and above. All of their resources show young adults and adults with disabilities, have a wide range of cultural representation, but everything on their website is really, really clear, and it's written by people with disabilities, and so it's just so authentic. So there's pictures. There's actually one resource I'm going to link you to that's set up kind of as a frequently asked questions, like what is COVID-19? How do you get it? What happens if you get it? So some really, really clear point form. I love this resource. If you actually go to the website though, there's another really good one that I love, and they have little videos of all of these, but also they have a video that shows you what it's like to have a virtual doctor's appointment, which is a new thing. And so you can watch the video to see what it's like. I think I'm gonna watch that because I'm pretty sure that I'm gonna be having a virtual doctor's appointment next week. So love that. So that is Green Mountain Self-Advocates. Very good resource. But again, for our older kids and young adults, older adults, all of that will be useful. The third resource I have is for the little guys, and I was thinking about all of our little kids. This is probably like depending on your kids, probably age 6 or 7, kind of like birth to age 6 or 7. And it is a resource we all know, PBS. PBS has created a whole section of how to explain, not necessarily, like, they do talk about COVID, but it's more about like how to stay healthy, how to prepare for unexpected events. And so kind of like more big ideas, hand washing, staying healthy, what does it mean to have social distancing? So really, really appropriate for little guys. I wouldn't use this for adults because adults have definitely, like for example, one of the resources are Daniel the Tiger. I wouldn't show Daniel the Tiger to anyone probably over 10. But this says Daniel the Tiger, Sesame Street, Curious George, Super Y. These are really popular kids shows, and basically there's a whole bunch of links that I'm going to put here that are all connected to videos, games, and activities about staying healthy, washing hands, and all of the kind of the pieces around COVID-19 that we're all experiencing right now. Like, why isn't it okay that my friends can't come over to play? So things like that, which I really like. So that's number 3, PBS. Number 4 is from, oh, I messed it up. Okay, back. The Green Mountain Self-Advocates, they do the plain language. Number 4, they're called HCard, Healthcare Access Research and Developmental Disabilities. They're the ones that have the videos of the doctor's offices. Sorry, I got that mixed up. So they have videos about COVID, and they have videos that have the virtual doctor's visits, so you can see what it's like. They also have a lot of videos around a lot of the things that we're talking about. So if you have kids that are really video motivated, they're going to be a good one. Sorry, I got that mixed up. But there's 4 big ones. So we have number 1, Autism Educator. Number 2, Green Mountain Self-Advocates. So the Autism Educator is good for school age. Green Mountain Self-Advocates are really good for kind of teenagers, young adults, adults. Number 3, PBS, great for the little guys, kind of under 7. And Healthcare Access Research, again, that's kind of high school and above. But there are a ton of resources. I'm going to post a whole bunch, even more than this. And I guess, regardless of what it is, think back to those big 4 questions. Clear, plain language, clear explanation, visuals. I need visuals. Everyone needs visuals. Like, just assume that you need the visuals. Number 3, make sure it's not fear-based. Make sure that we're reassuring that we can be safe here. We don't have to fear this, but we do have to follow some certain protocols. And make sure that the resources that you're using represent the people who you're interacting with. So if they're adults, use resources with adults. You can even use cultural representation too. The more a resource looks like an individual or reflects an individual, the more they're going to engage, right? Like it's a key feature of engagement that we can kind of pull into our families. Oh my goodness, 2 episodes! We've done our first week together. Oh my goodness. So our first day we talked about engagement and connection. Now we've talked about some resources to educate and help our kids to know what's going on. So our next episode is going to be a question and answer. So we are going to meet on Saturday. Now, depending on where you are, the time might be different, but BC time, it's going to be at 11 a.m. Okay. So at 11 a.m. BC time, we are going to meet on Instagram Live and Facebook Live. And if you have questions, or if you just want to connect and kind of just want to see what's going on, I will be there. Okay. And so I will record those sessions as well and post them on the YouTube with these videos. So if you aren't able to meet that time, you can still watch those, because there's probably, for every person who asks a question, there's 25 people who have the same question. So I'm hoping this is a time for us to connect. If you have certain questions that you have or tips that you're kind of wondering about, that's the time to come and ask. And then next week we'll have 2 more tips for learning at home. Thank you so much for watching. Look, my goal is to get them under 15 minutes. Yes, we did it. So, if you're just joining us, I'm Shelly Moore. Thank you so much for watching on our 5 more minutes special home learning edition mini-series. I haven't really decided what to call it, which is why I'm calling it so many things. But thanks for watching. Stay tuned. I'm going to put in the post all of the resources that I shared today. We're going to get through this together, everybody. Mwah, 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 mwah. We can do it!